What if the hardest part of letting someone go isn't losing them at all? What if it's losing the version of yourself that existed when they were still in your life? You can know someone is wrong for you and still check your phone hoping they'll message. You can understand that a relationship is over and still replay old conversations at night, wondering what you could have said differently. That is the strange cruelty of attachment. The mind doesn't always hold on because something is good for you. Sometimes it holds on simply because something became familiar. And Epictetus had a brutally simple answer to this problem. He believed that much of our suffering comes from confusing what belongs to us with what never did. So the first lesson is this: you cannot lose what you never controlled. Epictetus divided life into what is within our control and what isn't. Your judgments, choices, and responses belong to you. Another person's feelings, decisions, loyalty, and willingness to stay do not. That sounds obvious until someone you care about starts pulling away. Imagine you've been talking to someone every day. Then their replies become slower. They stop initiating conversations. You notice the change immediately. Suddenly, you're analyzing every message and wondering whether you did something wrong. Rumination. Your mind keeps returning to the same unresolved problem, as if more thinking will eventually produce control. But thinking harder cannot give you control over another person's decision. This is where Epictetus becomes uncomfortable. He would tell you to stop asking, "How do I make them stay?" and ask instead, "What is mine to do now?" If they choose you, that's their choice. If they leave, that's their choice. Your character and response is yours. And that leads to the second lesson. Sometimes you aren't attached to the person. You're attached to the outcome you imagined with them. This is why letting go can feel like grief, even when the relationship was never officially defined. You're not only mourning what happened, you're mourning what you thought would happen. You imagined the future. The conversations that never happened, the apology you expected, the version of them you believed would eventually appear. And the mind hates unfinished stories. We naturally search for explanations and closure because uncertainty is psychologically uncomfortable. But closure does not always arrive in the form of another conversation. Sometimes the explanation is simply that the person made a choice you didn't want them to make. Epictetus understood this distinction deeply. He repeatedly warned against treating external things as though they were possessions simply because we care about them. You can love someone without owning their presence. You can appreciate someone without making their presence necessary for your peace. That brings us to the third lesson, and this one is the most brutal. Letting someone go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop negotiating with reality. There is a difference between love and attachment. Love can recognize, "I want you to be well." Attachment often says, "I need you to behave in a way that makes me feel secure." Those two things can look almost identical from the outside, but internally they are completely different. This is why Stoicism is not telling you to become cold. Epictetus was not teaching emotional numbness. He was teaching a different relationship with emotion and circumstance. You can feel the pain without making the pain your decision maker. You can miss someone without contacting them. You can wish things had worked without pretending they still can. And perhaps most importantly, you can accept that someone leaving does not automatically mean you were not enough. Sometimes people leave because their priorities change. Sometimes because the relationship was unhealthy. Sometimes because they simply don't want the same future. Not every ending is a verdict on your worth. And this is where letting go becomes something more profound than moving on. You stop trying to get reality to apologize for being reality. You stop reopening the same wound looking for a different ending. You stop asking why they couldn't give you what you wanted and start asking what you are going to do with what remains. Epictetus would bring you back to the same place again and again. Your judgment, your choices, your response. You cannot command another person to stay. You cannot rewrite their feelings. You cannot force the past to become different. but you can decide what kind of person you become after they leave. So if someone comes to mind while you're listening to this, ask yourself one honest question. Am I missing this person, or am I resisting the reality that they are gone? The answer may hurt, but sometimes the truth hurts less than the story we keep telling ourselves. Letting go isn't saying I never cared. It's saying I cared, and I accept that I cannot control what happens next. And that is the freedom Epictetus was pointing toward. Because peace does not begin when everyone you love finally stays. Peace begins when you stop requiring them to. If you've ever had to let someone go, share what made it hardest for you in the comments. And if this gave you a different way to see attachment and relationships, subscribe for more Stoic ideas applied to real life. You don't find freedom by holding tighter to what is leaving. You find it by finally releasing what was never yours to control.